Welcome back. I'm Dr. Brad Nelson, author of The Emotion Code. Today we're going to be talking about the heart wall. The discovery of the heart wall has been called the most important discovery in the history of energy medicine. And today you're going to find out why. But first, to understand the heart wall, you have to understand a little bit about the heart itself and the latest research about the heart. First of all, your heart, of course, is a muscular pump about the size of your fist. It generates 60 to 1,000 times more power and electromagnetic energy than your brain, easily making it the most powerful organ in your body. Your heart beats about 100,000 times a day, about 40 million times a year. And if the connection from your brain to your heart is severed, that heart will keep right on beating. Now, if you're over 40 years old, you might have had what's called an EKG, which is an electrocardiogram, where the heartbeat is measured electrically, and you get a strip of paper that has the heartbeat. Believe it or not, that machine was developed back in about 1895. We now have a new machine that we call the magnetocardiogram that measures the heart's magnetic field. And when scientists started to measure the heart's magnetic field, they found something very interesting. They found that that magnetic field extends out around the body up to about 12 feet in diameter. We believe the heartbeat is actually a means of communication to every cell in the body, and that the cells obey the heart's communications. The heart is a communicator. In fact, they've proven now in the laboratory that when one person is feeling thoughts of love or affection for another person, their heartbeat will actually appear in the brain waves of the person that they're focusing love or affection on. Think about that. Let me say that again. If one person's feeling love or affection for another person, their heartbeat will appear in the brain waves and be measurable in the brain waves of that other person, you see. Well, heart transplant recipients oftentimes receive the affinities and the memories and the loves of the donor along with their new heart. In fact, a lawyer from Milwaukee received the heart of a 14-year-old boy and inherited this strange new craving for candy, especially Snickers bars, along with his heart. A man of 25 received a woman's heart, and now, to the delight of his girlfriend, has a consistent and powerful need to shop. Another amazing story, a 47-year-old Caucasian male received a heart from a 17-year-old African-American male. This man was surprised by his newfound love of classical music. He found out later that the donor, who loved classical music and played the violin, had died in a drive-by shooting, clutching his violin case to his chest. The most amazing transplant story that I ever read was where a 7-year-old girl had recurring nightmares about being killed after receiving the heart of another child who had actually been murdered. Her descriptions of the murderer, as well as the murder weapon, led to the arrest and conviction of the killer, of the donor. Isn't that amazing? Well, the ancient peoples understood the heart. And of course, in the West, we have believed for a long time that the heart is just a muscular pump, and that's all it is. But in ancient times, those ancient peoples believed that the heart was the seat of the soul and the core of our being and the source of our love and the source of our creativity. In fact, in the Bible, we read things like, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." And another one says, "The Lord sees not as man sees." For man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. And the ancient Egyptians believed that when you die, on the other side, you go through a ceremony that they called the weighing of the heart, where your heart is weighed, not in a physical way, but in some sort of symbolic way, to see what kind of a person you were on the earth. Interesting, huh? Well, we believe now that the heart is actually a second brain, and that it's sending messages to all the cells of your body continuously, and that the brain in your head actually obeys the messages sent by the brain in your heart. This is the latest research. Amazing, isn't it? Well, sometimes we feel like our heart is going to break. And when that happens, there's a physical sensation that takes place, of course. And we feel like there's an elephant sitting on our chest, or like we can't breathe, like we're choking. That occurs when the deepest part of us is feeling wounded, and the deepest part of us is the heart. When we're feeling deep grief or hurt or loss, we're really feeling an assault sometimes on the core of our being. And that's where those words like heartache and heartbreak come from. Well, sometimes a wall gets put up around the heart to protect the heart from being totally broken. And we call that the heart wall. It's a protection. It's a protection to protect the heart from being totally broken or from being further hurt. So let me explain to you how this phenomenon was discovered. A number of years ago, my wife woke me up early one morning to tell me that she had a dream. And in this dream, she saw 3 symbols. And these 3 symbols had to do with issues that were related to her health and well-being. She asked me if I would help her to figure out what these symbols meant. And I said that I would. We figured out the first 2 symbols in fairly short order and took care of those. When I turned my attention to the 3rd symbol from her dream, I suddenly had what I can only describe to you as a waking vision, where suddenly I saw before me this beautiful hardwood floor. And it looked like it had 100 coats of polish. It was the most beautiful floor I've ever seen in my life. It was very, very real. I did not imagine this. This actually suddenly was there before me. And at the same time that I'm seeing this floor, and by the way, this vision of this floor lasted for several minutes. At the same time that I'm seeing this floor before me, I have come into my mind this understanding that my wife's heart is underneath this floor. Now, I had absolutely no idea what this meant. And so I told my wife. She had no idea what it meant either. We were completely at a loss. We prayed and asked for some help about this, and then we started doing some testing and asking her subconscious mind what this was about. Well, what we found was that around 2 years old, she had felt that feeling of heartache enough. She had felt like her heart was going to break enough times that she needed protection around that heart. And so her subconscious mind started to put up a wall around that heart, an energy wall, if you will, a heart wall made from the energy of trapped emotions that were in her body. That's what the heart wall is. The heart wall will hamper your ability to give and receive love and to feel good emotions, and it contributes to feelings of isolation, and it will create depression and other problems for you, and it will interfere with your ability to succeed. There are also physical effects from having a heart wall. Chest pain sometimes, heaviness in the chest, neck pain, sometimes shoulder pain. But having a heart wall will also lower your immunity. Now, in my wife's case, the price that she paid for having this wall around her heart was that even though her heart was being protected from being hurt further, there was a price to be paid, and that price was that she felt isolated from other people. She felt like it was easy to feel negative emotions, hard to feel positive emotions. No matter what group she was ever with, she always felt like she was on the outside looking in, like she didn't really ever belong anywhere quite. She just had that nagging sort of feeling. Until that heart wall was fully taken down, and then suddenly those things started to change for her. And I want to share with you a couple of testimonials from people who have had their heart walls cleared, and I want you to hear the things that they say. This first one is from a patient of mine. And she wrote this. She said, "As I reflect back on the time after my heart wall cleared, I realized things weren't the same." She was a single woman, and she was in her 50s, had never been married. She said, "I began to open myself to the idea of having someone in my life to have and to hold, and to care for as he would care for me. It happened on the feeling level. Finding someone to share my life with just felt like the next step. There was a new readiness that I hadn't felt before. It must have been the removal of that invisible wall that I had not even known was there that allowed me to let this wonderful man in." So for all of you who think women cannot marry after a certain age, get your heart wall cleared, stay open to the possibilities life has to offer, and remember my story. We are now approaching our 5th anniversary, have just moved into our new home on the California coast, overlooking the ocean and Catalina Island, and are living the fairy tale. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Think about that. Here's another one. This is a woman who had some very serious social anxiety. And after having her heart wall cleared, here's what she said. "I now feel safe inside, deeply in my body, heart, and mind. I also feel comfortable in crowds. The deep, deep sadness, anger, and confusion I felt my whole life is gone. Gone, gone, gone. Thank you from the bottom of my now heart wall-free heart. That's from Lonnie. Excuse me for getting emotional a little bit about some of these, but these are very, very moving to me. Another story that I want to share with you was a young boy, 9 years old, who was brought to me. He'd been diagnosed as being clinically depressed. Imagine, clinically depressed at 9 years old. Nothing could be done for him. Nothing was working. He was having a very difficult time in school. His mother actually went to school one day and walked into the classroom unannounced to find his teacher telling her son how pathetic he was, because I think she was so frustrated because he wouldn't hand in his homework, and if he did his homework, he wouldn't hand it in, or he just wouldn't do it. It was very difficult. And so she took him out of school. She tried doing homeschooling with him, and that didn't work. And she had taken him to see several psychologists, psychiatrists. She was told that because he wouldn't admit that he was depressed, nothing could be done to help him. After removing his heart wall, which took about a half an hour, within about 3 days, he was able to go back to school. He was able to go into the program for advanced kids because he was so smart. His learning disabilities were gone. And she wrote to me, she said, "My son was diagnosed as being clinically depressed at only 9 years old. Nothing was helping him. If skepticism had kept me away from this type of treatment, I would still be parenting a very sad and frustrated little boy with no solution in sight. Instead, I have found a treatment that has literally saved him." Thank you, Connie. When you graduated from college, you probably got some advice. And the best piece of advice that you were probably given was to follow your heart. Great advice. But what if you have a heart wall? If you have a heart wall, your ability to find success will be hampered. And many people have found success after having their heart wall removed. Let me share this story with you. This is from a woman named Elena from Mexico City. She cleared her own heart wall. And she wrote this to me. She said, "I'm feeling an awesome difference since I released my heart wall. To begin with, my self-esteem has gone up to the sky. Secondly, I've been having one creative idea after the other. I feel the driving force which seemed to have left me long ago is back again with a lot of strength. I cannot really express how grateful I am to you and to God in the first place that led me to find you and your work." Now, I want you to think about this. Your creativity is in your heart. Your best creation in this world, your abundance, is locked up inside of that heart of yours. And if you have a heart wall, it becomes much more difficult to manifest that into this world. Taking down that heart wall can be the single biggest thing that you can do to not only allow love to flow into your life, to feel love, and to be able to give love freely, but also to allow that perfect creation that is inside of you, that perfect song that you have to sing, to let that out of your heart so that abundance can flow to you naturally.